We get live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to episode 162 of Dear Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast. I nailed it. I got it. It only took about a month to finally get figured out. But as you can tell, I am Kyle Carr. I am going to take on hosting duties this week. But no Adam. We had to drag him out because I decided not to show up last week for a lot of reasons. But I am joined by my good friend Riley Feldman. Riley, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Kyle. My volleyball season is starting to wrap up. We played horribly last week. Let's be honest, I played horribly last week. I had a horrible attitude, and I'm going to go into the final couple weeks of the season with a better attitude, I hope to. I want listeners at home who feel a comfort in having a third host who's located in Eastern time. It's not the East Coast per se, but Eastern time. We still have you covered, so don't worry about that this week.
Yeah, and that is because, and we apologize to him because we are not good with time zones, but we do have Morgan joining us this week. Morgan, how's it going?
It's going tired, but otherwise good. I thought I would note I was only able to do the pod at 9:30 Eastern, as it turns out, because I was just in New Albany, Ohio for a tennis match, and devoted Bucks fans listening to this, I'm sure will know that is the hometown of Michael Redd. So I did not see him at the club, but I'm sure he was,
lurking,
percolating.
Was he did you feel in your game, did you feel Michael Redd in spirit? Like, were you participating or were you spectating in the game?
I was participating, and honestly,
okay.
I played well and lost, which I feel like is a very Michael Redd experience.
He was there with you.
The Michael Redd era perfectly describes right there.
Everything time is a flat circle. It all comes around eventually.
It'd really be like that sometimes. It'd be like that sometimes. I was going to say one team that you can argue if they played well and lost, the Milwaukee Bucks, they definitely had a week of games. Just to run through, Monday, they beat the Nets 129 to 125. Wednesday, they beat the Pistons 120 to 118. I'm noticing a trend here, but yes, those are two close games. Then they played the next day against Indiana. The score was 126, 124 for Indiana victory. The score was being very generous. And then last night, Saturday evening, they went down to Orlando and lost 112 to 97. We'll preface this by saying Giannis got ejected halfway through the Pistons game, and Dame did not play the Pacers or Magic game. So that is going to go into a little bit of why we are going to start with what we learned. I'm going to let Morgan go with it first because what we learned is probably going to be the bigger thing that people are honestly going to wonder. So take it away, Morgan.
So I think that we learned that Adrian Griffin will not last the season.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to Dear Diaries episode 162.
So I, as we don't know from this pod appearance, I have an early bedtime, which means that the Magic game was the first game that I watched when it tipped in its entirety, and woof. And I had a lot of time to really kind of think about Coach Griffin, Dr. Griffin's performance, and I struggle to find redeeming qualities. And I know the season's early, and I know he should have time to acclimate. People have missed time. People have been ejected, especially this week. But if things went right for his system, both on offense and defense, I'm not sure if that would even be better. And things aren't going right, which is obviously even worse. So I'm I'm looking for optimism from my fellows here, but yeah, it's not a happy state.
Yeah, no, there's all of that is fair. I feel like we're all at the point of like, this is not going as well as we thought. I still think he gets through, unless things like go really, really bad. I think he still makes it through the season. If Milwaukee doesn't, make a far playoff run, I could see him getting fired after 1 year. But I think right now, I still see him getting through the season, just because despite being more or less a tire fire of inconsistencies, they are still sitting in 8th miraculously. They haven't had.
Oh, thank God for that. We
but
are in a
that's the thing.
play-on spot. We're in a play-in spot. It's true.
It feels like the sky is falling, and like this Bucks team is one of the worst teams in the league, and yet you look and it's like, oh, they're 5-4, and I mean,
Well, that's how, because it's, we've scored fewer points than our opponents and have a winning record, which honestly, kudos to us. That's impressive.
right. So it's like at some point, maybe they're just not a road team. They've only won one road game, and that was literally this Monday. So I don't know. I still see him making it unless things go really south, just because it feels like this team, a lot of the issues, I don't know how much of that can fully be on Adrian Griffin. I'll get to that in my take. Like, yes, there are definitely flaws that he has and flaws in what he's trying to do, but a lot of that I can't put solely on him. And it would help if he had his full healthy team. Granted, they probably don't win the Magic game. They probably would have won the Pacers game if they had their full team. I will at least say that, but I could be wrong. But I don't know, Riley, what are your thoughts on you were the one that was saying like Joe Prunty might just take over. You had that over under.
Yeah, it pains me to be sort of out on Griffin so early. I think Morgan's point about even if we were playing at the ideal state on both ends, would it even be effective? Not so much a good thing, but how effective would it be even in its best execution? The defense seems so flawed. The gap between what Griffin wants to do and the personnel, even if he was to suddenly promote Andre Jackson and Marjan to starters, I think the gap is too wide for him to bridge over. And so that's what's most concerning. Is the only adjustment we've really had is Brook a little bit more in the paint. Even then, it still hasn't been all that effective. On offense, I can't claim there is a system. It's even more play random than it was under Bud, and all the bad habits of the past of like Chris trying to make something happen by dribbling through traffic, Giannis really trying to make something happen by dribbling through traffic. Is like, we've seen all this before. We're defaulting to bad habits, and we haven't had Lillard out there, which is obviously, if you're going to be in an offense that has no system, having him out there is going to be a lot more helpful for keeping things competitive. You're at a loss for words for what's happening. And unless he thinks he's going to get John Horst to rally the last of the assets or pull another rabbit out of the hat to get like a couple more guys who would fit the system better, I'm curious what he's going to do here. And this is going to be a big test too of like his leadership of these players, because of everybody in the organization, the only person that has less equity than Adrian Griffin is probably like Ty Washington, like in terms of like guys who have proven things, who matter, who mean something to the franchise. Like, he has to find a way to get the Brook Lopez's on board, the Bobby Portis's of the world on board, the Pat Connaughtons on board. Like, you can get the stars. They're going to get their buckets and everything. They'll probably get in line more or less. Giannis is obviously a huge fan of like this aggressive defense, or at least that was what he said before. Those glue guys, the role guys, I mean, you can tell they just don't care. There's numerous possessions are like they just start sandbagging it, hands on hips. Guys aren't playing all the way through. Like, it's a real dicey situation Griffin's already found himself in. And, we're still 5-4. So we have won games. It's not like we're winless, thank God. But there's a real mismatch between what he's asking for, what the guys can do, what the guys think are smart, and he's going to have to try and paper that over, because I'm sorry, it's going to be tough to move Brooks $48 million in contract. That's going to be tough to move if Brook Lopez looks like he can't play anymore. So I think I'm probably with Kyle that he'll make the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jay Crowder leads the resistance starting soon, even though Jay Crowder is going to be like the biggest beneficiary. I see it happening. So.
Yeah, yeah. Riley, you want to go? Well, I guess, do you want me to go give mine, or do you want to give yours?
No, I think mine ties into Morgan's, because
yeah,
this is, so the reason why Adrian Griffin would not last the season is because the defense is so bad, no matter who the personnel is, no matter who the lineup is, that I'm going to go on record. And of course they're going to beat the Bulls, hopefully by 40 points after I say this. I don't think they're going to win a game by 15 or more points the entire season. I just don't see it. The defense is that bad. And it's actually amazing, because you go and we're like the 26th place defense in terms of defense rating. How can there be 4 teams with worse defenses than ours? It's like, I've gotten so used to watching like really good, if not top tier defense from like perimeter players, even in the Eric Bledsoe days, like perimeter defense to center play to like Giannis being the roam around, like kind of wrecking ball guy. And now we're this is what people have had to watch before, like with like contending aspirations. So we can have an offense that's a work in progress, where Giannis and Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton, they start to understand how to play together. Some guys start to shoot a little bit better, or they keep up. Like we've had a couple of guys who have pretty good 3-point percentages so far on the season. So it's not so much about scoring a bunch, but if we're just never going to be able to really blow a team out. The biggest victory we've had so far this year was 8 points against the Heat, and they were missing a bunch of guys in that game. And I think that, I don't know if they were on a back-to-back, but they had played a game pretty recent prior to that as well. So what I'm concerned about is tied back into what Morgan said. When the Bucks were crushing teams, you understood, here's what the system's going to be. You understand what it'll kind of look like in the playoffs. And then obviously you struggle because the competition is going to raise in terms of level at that point. I don't see the winning formula on either side. And if it's going to be we have to score to 140, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. And that's a complete 180, because it's like that cyclical thing people always talk about. Good defense leads to good offense, blah, 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 blah. Even if it's mostly cliche, it's rooted in something, and the defense is so bad. I mean, it is so bad that it's, how are you going to win a big game no matter what you do? I just don't see it. It would be amazing if we had a whole season without a 15+ point win, but right now I don't see it happening. Even against bottom tier competition, we're struggling to keep a lid on anybody right now.
Yeah. What do you think? What thoughts about that, Morgan?
I think it's been interesting, having all the close games thus far this season, and folks attributing it to like, oh, Dame time. He's so clutch. Like, yeah,
we're doing it on purpose to be like, we got to make Dame look good. Like, you got to make Dame look good. Defense. Yeah.
And it's like, well, yes, like Dame like hit an awesome 3 with 1 minute to go, but like we shouldn't freaking be in that situation to begin with. And it's gritty, it's tough, and it's 20-point games are turning into 2-point games. Maybe the rosy interpretation is that Griffin is more likely to like throw, if we actually somehow do sniff a 15-point lead, he's more likely to just throw the AJs in there immediately than Bud maybe playing starters a little bit longer. I mean, as I talked about with the Magic game the other day, like he was throwing in Chris Livingston when we were like basically single digits down with many minutes to go. So, why not? Like,
in the world, I was like, what is going on? It's like this is a surrender lineup, and yet I was looking at the score. I was like, wait, we're not out of this, and there's something
because he surrendered with Thanasis, and then it actually like it got close. And
worked.
it's like, oh well, clearly I need to go further towards surrender, and let's bring out Chris. It was so confusing, and then it got worse, and then it was like, oh well, now we'll bring in middle. Yeah, whatever. But so maybe that'll like accidentally break 15 for one game, but no, and there was just that easy boringness about like the 17-point wins under Coach Bud. That yeah, those were the good old days.
Yeah, I think the thing that baffles me the most is every statistic I look at in terms of like the opposing team field goal, like free throw attempts. The Magic game was just like, oh my God, this team is fouling like none other. The Bucks are top 10 in the opposing free throw attempt rate. That was surprising me. There's like so many factors of this defense that would say like, yes, this is where it's like the fast break is bad. Like that is still horrifically bad. It's just not the worst in the league anymore. Miraculously. Thank you, Portland and Atlanta. But every other defensive metric, whether it's second chance points, whether it's the foul rate, even points in the paint, the Bucks are still hovering around top 10. And that's where I'm just sitting there like, what? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. How the hell does that happen? Even though the Bucks are a bottom 5, bottom 10 defensive rating. And for me, I think it just comes down to these guys just don't give enough of a shit most of the time. Like they don't have that dog in them. They don't have it. They don't have the want to. And it's always evident because the Bucks always seem to have 1 or 2 quarters where they just look like a helpless team defensively. And then that's where it comes in. Riley was like hands on the hip, dudes getting blown by no matter what. And it's just like this team just looks like they don't care. And then they dig themselves in a 15, 16 point deficit. And then it's like, okay, now we start trying. And I'm sorry, you're not that team that you can just, you don't get the benefit of the doubt of being able to do that. Like the Indiana game was the perfect example of you get your doors blown off you early, and then it takes Giannis dropping 54 points and just doing everything on his own to even make it a close enough game when it shouldn't have been. In the Magic game, again, like you get this run, you get it pretty close, and then you're throwing this surrender lineup only because the F it, why not? Let's just throw the guys out there. It worked. And it's the same thing over and over. It's like there's always 1 or 2 quarters where this defense just get absolutely torched. And in the Magic game, like we were saying in our chat, but Mitchell was saying like it's bad. I was like, no, the offense is a bigger problem in the first quarter. Like the offense was the reason why this game looked so shitty. Like the defense in the first quarter is good, actually. They weren't allowing a lot of open threes. They weren't allowing a lot at the rim. It was actually like coherent. And you can kind of see the aggressiveness. And then they went to zone, and that's always a mess. But I think a lot of the times it's just these guys just don't give a shit enough. And I think that's where it really comes down to. For me, no matter what Griffin does, whatever style he throws out there, whether he wants to do the aggressive thing or have Brook back in the drop, it doesn't matter if those guys they keep letting dudes just walk right past them. It doesn't matter if they can't grab a goddamn rebound. And the Orlando Magic are able to just feast, and every other team's able to get offensive boards like it's nothing. And it doesn't matter when you're so bad defensively that you have to foul them just to slow them down. Like it comes down to that aspect of it for me, where I don't know what the system's supposed to be because these guys don't even look like they give a shit about what the system's supposed to be. And then Giannis keeps saying, oh yeah, this is not who we are. Well, then who the hell are you? Because we thought you were this good team in the drop, and then you keep getting yourself and like that's the reason why we got rid of Bud, because we looked at this team and said, okay, Bud's system is very, very flawed when it comes to the playoffs. And the one time that they were actually really good is when they did an aggressive switch heavy system. And then otherwise, Bud's system does not work on the defensive side, and it gets exposed. And the problem is offensively, there's not enough where you can overcome that. And then you come in, you bring in Dame, and it's like, all right, you get rid of Bud, you bring in Adrian Griffin, and there's going to be a more aggressive, and it's like, okay, this is not going to be good in the regular season, but with the plan that when this thing clicks, it's going to be great in the postseason, and then you add Dame Lillard, which can cover the offensive problem, because the Bucks offense was more of their downfall than their defense. And yeah, it doesn't look like either, and most of the time, the Bucks offense is Giannis, Dame gets to the rim, gets free throws, which, hey, when it works, it works. Like when it's clicking, It looks great, and that's fine. And in the postseason, that might like having Dame be able to do that. That might be enough in the postseason, but in the regular season, no. And the reason why I think the defense looked much better in preseason, besides playing a bunch of scrubs most of the time, you're having guys like Marjan, you had Andre Jackson Jr., you're having Chris Livingston, you actually have guys like Jay Crowder, you have guys that actually want to give a shit and can put in that effort. And that's why the defense looked a lot better. And now you're putting in older Chris Middleton, older Giannis, older Dame. Brooke is getting exposed. And it's like, okay, maybe this defense doesn't work, as we all said, because it's an old team and trying to do this aggressive thing with an old team isn't going to matter. But I think for me right now, it's just this team just doesn't have the dog in them that is needed. They don't have the want to. They don't have that drive. It's the same thing with the Wisconsin Badger football team. Like, I just see a bunch of dudes that are out there and they get their asses handed to them and they're just like, oh, okay. And then finally someone will be like, no, this isn't allowed. This isn't okay. Okay, but we can't keep hearing that same thing over and over. Like, someone needs to actually do something about it. And I don't know if John Horst needs to go down there to the Frederick Center tomorrow and just be like, get your absolute shit together. But someone's got to knock some sense into these guys. And whether that's Griffin, whether that's Horst, whether I don't know what Joe Prunty can do it. If Wes Edens has supply in there, do it fine. But someone needs to someone needs to just knock some skulls. That's my pick.
My follow-up questions. One, which is the better starting backcourt in terms of defense? Damian Lillard and Malik Beasley, or Brandon Jennings-Monta Ellis? Who do you want rolling out there from a defensive perspective? Which pairing do you want?
I'll still go with Dame and Beasley because at least I know they try. There's at least some effort. And yes, Malik Beasley might freeze like his controller shut off at times in a clutch moment. And Dame at least he's getting deflection, so that's good. Like Jennings and Ellis, like they weren't going to do it. You knew they weren't going to do it. I think at least the bar was in hell at that point with expectation.
Morgan, do you have a favorite of the pair between the two?
I would just concur.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So acknowledging the numerous issues that Kyle, I think literally everybody who has watched the Bucks at all this season identifies as the problem. What's the fix? So there's yell at guys. These guys are all like 30-year-old men. I'm not sure if that's going to work. Let's be honest. There's can the coach. There's say, coach, you need to fix it or you're going to get canned. There's the threat. That worked on Bud. That worked on Bud in game 6 or whatever of the Nets series. So
having Rick Carlisle ready to be announced.
Yeah, have Rick Carlisle, have me write a newser about Rick Carlisle being ready to rock and roll. The problem with every game that goes by is the hole that this gets dug into gets that much deeper. Even if we continue to win, just eke out a couple of wins here or there to stay slightly above 500, because I don't see us going on a huge rip and winning like 5 straight. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. So that's the hell that we're in. Again, how are we back here? We're back in this hell where every game that goes by, you're like, this is like late stage Jason Kidd, except on steroids. It's like every game that goes by, it's not getting better. It's not, where's the improvement? We're not seeing the improvement. So it's just, if anybody has a creative solution, I'm happy to hear it. But I think at the end of the day, we're at a bad spot.
Just reinstitute.
I mean, it starts to them, to be honest.
Bud. Like system. Well, no, I just, and to Kyle's point about, the dog in them, it's like they weren't really expected to be dogs to the same degree, like under the, like, especially like on the defensive side. Like this system requires a bunch of like 35-year-old men to be dogs, and they don't have it like that, and that's not that surprising. So, like, I mean, honestly, like you have like assistants that were on the previous staff, like you have tape from what happened the last 5 years. Do that, and then add whatever Toronto, etc. magic that you want. Like, be a little bit more flexible. And I don't know, like it's I it's not so much fixing the current system as realizing that over the last 5 years, we won 70% of our regular season games, and the next highest team, I think, was the Sixers at 63. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Yes, we have slightly different personnel, and I guess we'll get to that, but yeah.
Well, and
that's also part of it. Go, Riley.
So back to Kyle's point as well of like what got us over the line in the playoffs when we finally won the title was incorporating a switch heavy, which is true, but that didn't mean that we automatically went completely away from what's utilizing Rook's skills in a certain way. So it's finding that fusion. And man, did Bud not at times. I mean, we have the PJ Tucker having to like coach him up, like this is how we're gonna do it. It was hard to get to that point, but that was like what the key was that finally got us over the line, just barely, but it got us there. And now we're going so far in the other direction that now, you know, if it was slightly effective, it would still be flawed. And you, like Morgan said, and you need to work your way back to something that's in between. But we're so far in the other direction and it's not working. Like Bud's system worked, and then it had weaknesses that you could figure out things to kind of mix it up, zone, switch, whatever, get the right personnel. That's the real trouble we're having right now. Is like we're just it's so ineffective that finding that next step or incorporating is like impossible to even consider right now at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's on the defensive side. And again, that's a lot of that when it comes to an aggressive thing, you need guys that actually want to be aggressive. And you just don't with most of these guys. And that's fine. If they don't want to be that overly aggressive, that's okay. But if your system is predicated on we're going to be aggressive, you have to then play and give a shit to be aggressive. And even if that just means trying at the very bare minimum, try. Like Pat Connaughton, not great defender most of the time, but you at least see what he's trying to do. Malik Beasley, not good most of the time, but there is effort. It's kind of just more like a lot of it's coming more from like Giannis and Brook, if anything. Like these are supposed to be your two anchors, and they seem to be getting flambéed half the time by a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, but there is no contest on the perimeter at all. There's
right.
Malik Beasley tries. We're living in a world now where we had grown so used to over the years Eric Bledsoe, who for all of his faults on the offensive side of the ball was an excellent point of attack defender. Excellent. There was no clean entry past the 3-point line if Eric Bledsoe was your guard. Then you go to Drew Holiday. It's like Eric Bledsoe on steroids. Like he's even taller. He's got an even wider width. Like he knows like the positioning is so great. We've taken such a step back at the two backcourt positions defensively. Even though Malik tries, Dame doesn't really try. Let's just be honest. He doesn't really try. Which is fine.
Get a deflection and that's it.
That's about, and if that deflection doesn't happen right away, then it's off to the races and we're giving up however much in transition. There is a certain level of Brook and Giannis have to be better and have to communicate better and all of that. But we have such a shift from the contest that we have on the perimeter from the past 5 seasons, like Morgan was saying. We have to wrap our minds around that. This is a totally different game. Schematically, no matter what Griffin would try to like draw up, that point of attack defense is no longer there. And that's the cascading effects of that. We're seeing what's happening with the fact that our interior defense all of a sudden is horrible. Like, you know, there has moments of complete horror. It's not like it can be strong at times, but it's a lot weaker than it's ever been before.
Yeah, and this kind of can segue over into the Buck the Host, where Riley had put out there how much different would this defense be if you still had Drew and Grayson Allen? And that kind of goes with is this a personnel thing? Is it a scheme thing? Is it a little bit of both? And I think it is a personnel. I think it is a personnel thing because your best perimeter defender might be a rookie. Your second best perimeter defender is a dude that I have very willingly said should go to Ba Sing Se. And I've eased up on that. Turkey is still an option, but I've eased up on Ba Sing Se. He might be your second best perimeter defender. And then the third is Marjan, who has been hit or miss. And that's and that's where, like you said, Riley, like the point of attack is just non-existent. How much does Drew and Grayson fix that? I think it covers a lot of papers a lot of cracks, but I still think like the scheme would still fail. Like it would still not work. It would still have these like being exposed. It's just a matter of maybe instead of it being a 48-minute affair, it's only like 20, 25.
I guess I just think that even under like the Bud system without a Drew or an Eric, you have, I don't know, Brooke is pretty much just stationed at the rim. You've got Giannis like pretty close by. You don't have folks switching around, double teaming, flying everywhere. Like let them in. Let them in. Like, I mean, a lot of times last year in particular with all of Brooks' blocks, like we just let people into the paint. Good luck shooting over him. He contested how many shots? That honestly, like, would I rather have them like out on the perimeter shooting over Malik and Dame, or would I rather have them like down in the paint? Like, I feel like that's kind of where we want them to end up, and it's still, I think, just because of the because of just everything. It's not Brooke or Giannis like being able to cover. It's either someone smaller down low who's out mismatched, or it's just Franz Wagner just laying it in repeatedly, like the exact same move the entire game that I suffered through. I just, that's still fresh in my mind, but obviously it would be lovely to have Drew back, and Grayson, huge perimeter defender loss, but I don't know. I think it's this scheme.
Yeah, I've just like, I'm wondering when I think back, and I think we talked about this on last week's episode, trying to understand Griffin as scheming up for his assumption for much of the summer was Drew Holiday was going to be his lead guy. And I still think the defense would probably suck, but it wouldn't suck as much. Like there would be a degree of difference, and maybe that degree of difference would be what you need to have everything else cohere all the other problem spots that we have. So that's kind of, and Grayson Allen, I think never a great perimeter defender, but I also didn't see him just freeze. They just stop playing weird. And Malik is a classic. It's actually a lot like Grayson in that it's not a lack of want to necessarily. It's just like there's something missing in that the final product doesn't really come together. So I don't really even fault, excuse me, Malik all that much, but that's just kind of what I was thinking about, is like, how much of it would we feel a lot better about if Drew was here? How much better would it look? It probably wouldn't look that much better, but that's pretty drastic change to lose your starting backcourt, one of them being a defensive dynamo as well. So that's kind of, and then you start going down the rest of the roster. Our backup center is
not playing.
Bobby. Not well.
Or Bobby.
Yeah. Bobby, who is notoriously not a great defender. He has dog in him, but notoriously not a wonderful defender. Giannis at the 5, which he's never really liked. And he served adequately when he had to fill in for Brooke, but that was also in a drop scheme primarily. There's nobody like the optionality in terms of big men. It does not exist. Sorry, Marcus Bolden. Like I'd assume he's not the solution. So that's kind of what thought about the question is like, do we look how much better do we feel? Probably not that much better, but a little bit. And again, it goes all the way back. Like, okay, personnel can't fit the scheme. It's really both, that's the devil's in the details. It's both things. Unfortunately, that's the problem here.
I think there's
it's like 60-40 personnel, like 60% personnel, 40% scheme.
I think there's also, it's interesting where you go from, like, I think where Drew makes more of a difference, it's when we do have like the 2 turnstiles at guard, like just having Drew next to like Grayson or like someone else who wasn't like a Drew level defender. Like if there's one clear defender that the other team can pick on, okay, we can account for that. We can like Brooke and Giannis can shade over to that. Like great. If there's no one, I just the gap going from like 0 to 1 bad defenders, not that bad, but 1 to 2, all of a sudden it's like an exponential leap. So with those, like to that extent, I personnel plays a role.
Yeah. And it's not just even, I mean, when it's the two guys who are next to each other, like that's 2 weak points at the top, like could be at the top of the arc. It could even be off ball work. And especially in our scheme where a lot of guys are switching, you're constantly, it doesn't matter. It's not just Malik. It's not just Dame. It's everybody constantly pointing. So it's not, I don't want it to seem like it's just them. They just happen to be the ones because that's the biggest difference from what we have personnel wise from last season. But they are a symptom of what ails the entire system. And if these guys, all of these guys, a lot of NBA professionals cannot get it to snap together after a full training camp, full preseason, almost 10 games into the season now. Like a couple of mistakes here or there, but you just expect to see slight improvements, and we're just not right now, which is probably what is the biggest red flag for Griffin and whatever he's trying to run out there. So.
Yeah, and I think it's also the aspect of when it's a younger player, you expect a younger player to have those flaws of they miss the things, they get attacked, like they're just getting picked on. But these are guys that have been in the league long enough that you should be able to communicate with switching. You should be able to communicate, and especially when it is like a unit of like Giannis, Bobby, Brooke, like these guys have played long enough that they should know how to communicate. Like, it'd be one thing if you're throwing the lineups of, like, Campaign and Dame and then, like, Marjan, Jay Crowder, and someone else. Okay, and Pat. Like, yeah, that's going to suffer. But when you're having a lot of the core guys that have been together for 5 years and they cannot figure it out and they cannot communicate, that's where it's like, okay, but, like, you guys got to... Okay, but, like, that can't happen, like, for a team that is... For a group of guys that have played together long enough. Like, that can't, like, those shouldn't be issues. If you're putting in one or two guys, and obviously, like, yes, like with Malik and Dame, it's like, yes, you're putting in a new starting backcourt. But you have had a training camp, at least with Malik. But that doesn't factor in, like, Giannis, Chris, Brooke, Bobby, Pat should still be looking as lost as they do as a unit.
I got one more question for you guys, and then we can get to Kyle's blue uniform take that you didn't get to have last week. If there was one change in emphasis on the defensive side of the ball, don't worry about personnel, just like the way that they're trying to play right now. If you could change one thing about it, what would be your biggest flag? And I'll go first. My big thing would be stop trying to steal the ball in transition on the other end of the courts. Stop. And if you're going to do that, really fucking commit to that, because the half-ass swing in front of a guy is not going to cut it in the NBA. I'm sorry to tell these guys, to be the one on Dear Diaries to break it to them. The transition defense, that's where guys get hands on hips the most. That's where Adrian Griffin has been forced to call so many timeouts, because guys it's Bobby and like Campaign having to sprint to cover for 3/5 of their team, like the other three teammates who are on the other end of the floor trying to make something happen. And yeah, we're getting more steals, but I think trying to force turnovers in transition incompetently would be the thing I would have them change first.
I fully agree on the transition defense, and that's probably where most of the want to comes in. It's like, if you can't get your ass back on defense, then like, what are we doing? And most of the time when the teams are starting to get on a run, it comes off a miss, and then 5 seconds later, they get a layup. Or they're swinging a pass to the open corner in the three because no one figured, oh, there's a guy there. Let me pick. It's transition defense, 100%. Like, that alone would probably fix a lot of the other issues, because then the Bucks can actually figure out what's going on instead of trying to scramble from basically the second the ball hits the rim.
I don't really know how to fix rebounding, but if we could fix defensive rebounding, when I like just crawling through the stats, the rebounding, the defensive rebounding shift is stunning. We went from legitimately first to legitimately last, and small sample size, but I'd like to think that a little bit more structure. Brooke is in the center and can tap out to guys where he actually knows where they're going to be. Like, at least get us middle of the pack, because we're just giving up. We're giving up offensive boards, and because we're playing random, those offensive boards are more likely to turn into second chance points, and then we're not going to win a game by at least 15 this season. So
I agree with that.
Fix it all. But
Yeah, go back to the drawing board. But since we can't probably implement a brand new defense midseason, I'm willing to take small
as well try
shots.
at this point. Like, would it really hurt?
Yeah, we just got to get to the All-Star break, and then we'll have a chance to finally sit back and let's just retool with this old.
No, you just got to hire this Argentinian assistant coach. Apparently, that'll fix all the problems.
How long is the in-game tournament? Whatever break that's a break, right? We just make sure we're not in that. I think, have some time.
Yeah. Oh, we don't need to worry about being in that. I'm not too worried about our making it deep in the in-season tournament. Yeah. Morgan's point about
keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Morgan's point about the rebounding. I mean, I was looking at like Bobby's rebounding numbers. He was the totem last season. Yeah. Like he took the full step, and his numbers just crashed through the floor this season. Horrific.
Crazy. Bye double. Bye 6 man. Yeah.
So like, that's what's so strange about it. So many guys. It's like last season Bobby was like a fringe 6th man of the year, but like, still a legitimate fringe, if that makes sense. Now it's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So yeah, there's too many problems and it's so messed up because we're still 5-4. So it's like, we have like a positive record technically speaking, but it's
technically
yeah.
But it's we're not comparing to 500. We're comparing to like expectations.
Yes, yeah. And I should note in the 2020-2021 season, the team also started 5-4. But in that, we dropped 30 points on 2 teams. We 50 burgered the Heat, and like the other, I think there was one bad loss, but the other ones were really close. Like
I think it was the Heat the following night.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, we were bombing on people, absolutely bombing on them. So not all 5-4s are the same, which is why there's so much discussion around it. Because, like you said, against expectations, and we have a negative point differential and somehow a positive record. So Dame time is for real. That's what that means.
Yeah. Which, hey, good on him. Good on the Bucks, at least, for understanding our strength is we can get to the free throw line with ease with Giannis and Dame. At least I got that. But, yeah, that's enough of this catastrophe that is the Milwaukee Bucks so far. Speaking of catastrophes, I'm going to talk about the blue uniforms real quick. Hey, Milwaukee, whoever does the marketing, whoever's in charge of, all that, stop making blue the main chick. It's not. It is the side piece. It is the side hoe. It needs to be that. And you're making it you're trying to take it to visit the family. No, that's your sneaky link. Okay, blue is the sneaky link. Let it just be on the side. Stop making it the main person. And also, if you have to explain like, oh, the splatters are the Deer District crowd, it's not a good jersey. If you have to thoroughly explain what every intricate little detail is, it's not a good jersey. It's not, again, we've done blue now. This is like the 3rd straight year. It's either the 3rd straight year or like the 3rd in the last 4 years that we've done a blue jersey. It's getting old. It's getting overkill. We have the blue court that I think they're trying to make the permanent court and people complained too much. So then they made a new court. That's my fun conspiracy theory. Yeah, it's the side piece. Stop making it your main chick. That's all I got for blue now. I'm done.
Well said, Kyle. Yeah. How can anybody follow that up? Yeah.
I don't know. But
I have no opinion on the color blue. I do have an opinion on like it's meant to represent like the swoosh of Pfizer, right? Is that the
apparently
idea?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just the downfall of modernity. It's like, oh, let's memorialize something that like was just created.
Literally,
like
not even 5 years old.
the Hone Bridge is right there.
That's literally what I was thinking. Like, it's not like Milwaukee lacks for some landscaping to pull from. Like, come on.
It's like near identical. It's literally like by the lake, by the blue.
You're already selling us that the splatter are the fans in the Deer District, so you might as well. Nobody's gonna care. Just say it's from the Home Bridge,
right?
Everybody be like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
It'd be like, "All right, fine. Like, we can work with that, sure." But you're really gonna tell me, "Oh yeah, it's the Deer District. This is Pfizer." Like, I don't know what Pfizer's architect. Like, the closest thing is the airport in Marrakesh. And again, I might have been so hammered on sangria, I could have confused the two. I haven't looked at it since.
Doesn't Pfizer Forum look a lot like Bel Air Cantina? Isn't that the whole joke? Is like they just stole the design from Bel Air in downtown?
I don't know. I've never been to
Milwaukee.
a Bel Air Cantina.
No, okay. Milwaukee
After that
folks
whole
weigh
Giannis
in,
situation,
weigh
I was
in.
like, nah, we're not
Yeah.
doing Bel Air Cantina.
It's not a great look from the folks at Bel Air, but I believe the location downtown looks very similar, and it's been there for at least before the Forum did. So they should have just written it's after the Bel Air Cantina. That would have been more rooted in Milwaukee. But
look, if you're gonna do
Morgan's
any
right.
Milwaukee landscape or like architect, if you're gonna really do something to like honor that, just do the art museum. That actually is like a legit, like, okay, this is a very interesting architecture and like staple of the city. Like, do that.
And what is it? What does it look out over, Kyle? It looks over Lake Michigan, over the water. Come on. What's happening here, Nike? Get in touch with us. Get in touch with us. They're missing layups. Like it's Drew Holiday in a clutch playoff game. Come on. Jesus Christ.
All right,
Sorry,
no
Drew.
more blue. Let's go over miscellaneous stuff. Riley, go ahead with rapid fire.
We got some good miscellaneous stuff this week, and I'm proud of us for getting through the meat and potatoes of the podcast in 45 minutes. We're going to continue to try and be more faster with these podcasts. Now it gets slow. Rapid fire. Ironically, what was the last meal that you guys made that you were impressed with? Like you yourself, you made it. You're like, I'm actually impressed with how that turned out.
Oof.
They get easier from here. The questions.
See, I'm not the cook in the house. That was Emma. Emma's the cook. I'm the baker. But the last thing I vividly remember was like a shrimp scampi.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an eggplant renaissance currently occurring at the Ross household, and my answer is really basic, but it turns out if you roast eggplant, it's really good. It's like,
I believe that.
I don't know if it's like something I was proud of, but I was like, wow, I like exerted no effort into that, and it tasted incredible. And for that, I'm proud.
I've always been at the grocery store because they, eggplant, there's just mega eggplants. So I'm like, how the hell am I like, this seems overkill. But every time I've ever had eggplant, I'm like, this is pretty solid. Like all things considered, let's be honest, this is a pretty solid dish. Yeah.
Yeah. It also has there's like a math theorem where like you cut up one orange and you're able to like create two from it. I don't know if that rings a bell, but I feel like it always happens with eggplant where like you're like, oh, it's one eggplant, it's not that much, and then you cut up and you're like, where did all that come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
you
that's
get to the
why I
end, you're
love
like, it's a
peppers.
mountain. Yeah.
That's why with bell peppers, it's like you cut it up. It's like, oh, holy crap!
Oh,
This is
I didn't want all that.
Like shit. Like this recipe really asked for 4 peppers. Are they serious? Like, are they crazy?
I guess I'm just gonna munch on the rest of these for a snack. I guess.
Yeah. Always halfway through, you have that moment of doubt where you're like, do they mean two? No? Okay.
Speaking of moments of doubt, here's a question for you guys to hopefully put you in doubt of how closely you watch the team. So far on the season, the 2 leaders in minutes per game, Damian Lillard at 33.7, Giannis at 32.2. Who has the 3rd most minutes per game average on the team? We'll let you guys submit your answers, and then I will tell you what the actual answer is. You don't have to give me the minute number. Just who do you think has the 3rd highest? Yeah, just give me the 3rd highest minute per game.
I want to say campaign. I feel like lately there's been a lot of campaign, and like between Dame being out the last 2 games, and then like there were lineups where it was Lillard and Payne. I'll guess him.
Maybe Jay.
Morgan's right on the money. It's Jay Crowder, Mr. Baku himself, 26.7 minutes. He's ahead of Brook Lopez. Yeah.
It's mostly just for lack of other options. It's like, well,
that's all I'm saying. I was like,
well, Griffin hates Brook. Pat's been slow to start the season. Campaign sits behind Dame. Marjan dribbles off his foot. Like, it's really.
Jay has started a couple games. Jay has been starting a few games. I think he started the last 2 games with Dave, and he's also in the closing defensive lineup. So yes, Jay Crowder, still not fully a believer, my friend, but you are number 3.
he's, I was very much on board with sending him abroad. Like, ended up probably further than. Yeah, it was like online extremism. Like you guys were feeding me that, and I was just like, it just kept going.
Yeah.
But like he's, it turns out that give a man an off season in the city, and he has legs. So good for him.
For now, yeah. Like I said, I've stopped sending him to Bossing Say, and I'm still. Turkey is now like, I'm easing him into Turkey. Now he's at least made it to mainland Europe. Although during that Pistons game, if he had missed both those free throws, I was ready to put him in the Marshall Islands for good.
He's shooting 51% from 3 on like decent value. Be honest, like I don't expect that to maintain, but in terms of like what he was going to bring on offense,
hey, he's doing exactly what he needs to.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Assuming both guys are traded, because that's just how this is going to go. Who goes down higher on the all-time Buck list? Pat Connaughton or Bobby Portis? So I asked this because there's obviously the Bobby chance. He has a Visit Milwaukee recurring spot with the tourism board. But Pat literally like won us a finals game. He's a real estate mogul titan in the Milwaukee metro area. He goes to golf events for the Bucks charity. I'm trying to think of other Pat notable moments. I'm sure they're out there.
He could have played baseball.
Yeah, he's more than an athlete. He could have played. He could have played baseball. That's true. So
his jump is incredible.
Oh yeah, he was in the dunk contest. The dunk contest. He has a dunk contest appearance as a Buck. So if they were assuming they both get traded this year, who goes down higher on the all-time Buck list?
I'll still say Bobby. Look, when you have an in that you could probably run for mayor and likely win it, it's gonna be you.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I don't know. I feel like Pat's property keeps him in the area. I think his like better playoff performance has stands the test of time. And Bobby strikes me as someone that's gonna retire to Arkansas, find a nice fishing hole, and call it a day. But I don't know. They're just both legends. So
yeah, yeah.
There's gonna be a billboard of
legends with a capital
have billboards all over Milwaukee. There will be a Pat Connaughton real estate billboard.
You gotta be fucked.
You're gonna take that Marquette interchange. You're gonna start heading south, and it's gonna be right there, bam, in your face, past the Harley Davidson.
Okay. Why is Robin Lopez here?
I don't know, honestly.
Broke.
Yeah. Okay. On to my final question of the podcast. What if, assuming the season, let's just, God forbid, let's say the season just ends up being kind of ho-hum. What is it a bigger waste of? A year of Giannis and Damian Lillard's primes, or one of Marcus Johnson's last seasons on the in the broadcast booth? What are we wasting?
Johnson's last season. Right. Absolutely. Okay.
We already have a title, so it's true that the on-court stuff is whatever. But when we make that transition from Marcus to Steve Novak, it's going to be getting the mute business for sure over on Valley, whatever the hell they're broadcasting on after Valley Sports goes under. Morgan, do you concur?
Be rude not to. Rude too. Rude not to.
It would be rude not to.
Yeah, there we go.
The biggest downside is Dame already has calf issues and he's 33 going on 34. We'll probably have pretty short window with him being top level. So to balance it out, I mean, everybody loves Marcus. He's awesome. Ultimately, I can just put mute on the broadcast if I don't like the announcers. So just to provide a little balance to that.
And you can always just turn off the TV if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, if everybody's disappointing me, I just go on and I do something else with my night. So
that's what I did on Saturday. I was like, you know what? I don't need to keep watching this game. And it was like halfway through the third, I was like, I'm done. And then they clawed it. I saw the lineup.
That's when it got good. That's when
I know. And then I saw the lineup and the score. I was like, wait. No, I'm not putting this game back. Absolutely not.
Dude, Thanasis double block. Artwork.
It's moments like that which is what convinced him to stay here rather than become the next great Nick. He was like, I can lead this team back to victory or almost victory. Shout out to Youth Analysis, you rock. That's all I had for rapid fire this week.
All right. I got my film review. I wasn't sure if I did this before, but probably not. Barbie. Finally, well, I saw Barbie like a couple months ago. We just haven't had an episode where it would work. But for someone, I went into Barbie like, okay, I'm sure it's gonna be like a simple ho-hum fun time. Like I'm not expecting it to be like anything deep. Holy crap, no, that's a lie. Like this is a whole movie about existential crisis. And I was not ready for that. I love a movie about existential crisis as someone that constantly goes through an existential crisis. So it was really good. It surpassed my expectations. Ryan Gosling was fantastic as Ken. Honestly, I think the casting was kind of like spot on, which is rare for a movie like that. Like the plot was still a little like, it did feel like it dragged on for a bit, but overall it's very bright, it's very colorful. I had a good time. I understand why people were so excited, like spoke so highly of it. I give it a good 7. Like I said, for what I was expecting and what I got, it was better than what I expected. And it is a movie that I will like gladly watch again with no hesitation. So yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10 because existential crisis really speaks to me, and that's what boosts the score.
Morgan, did he pass the test?
It just was and will be the greatest movie of this century.
I'm not going that far. Hold on, I'm not going that far.
No, it was fire in all regards. I've seen it twice. The first time, my main critiques were I wanted more less like monolithic feminism, more like different waves, different perspectives, and then I also wanted more of America and her daughter, and like more of the humans and less of the glitzy Barbie. And then I had those misgivings going into the second viewing, and the movie anticipated those misgivings and knocked them out of the park. And it's a perfect movie. So, and I actually would have liked to have been longer, so it could have addressed some of those things. But Mattel sure as hell wasn't going to have a popular movie be longer than 2 hours. So you're damn right, it was an hour 55.
Yeah. And that's why I was kind of like, I feel like they either needed to like, it just felt like it dragged because like they're not gonna like answer a lot of these questions quickly enough to make it work, like to make sense, but also it did feel basic at that. But overall, it's like, yeah, I agree. It was like, it is definitely a movie like on second watch, like it is better to watch like a second time, because then like you kind of get past like the initial like it's in your face kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's so much. No, definitely. Also, the world became a better place now that Nicki Minaj has rapped over Barbie Girl. So that did more for the world than I will ever do. So
I'm not a Nicki Minaj fan, so I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Dua Lipa song was fun, so I will go with that. That's a fun song.
Okay.
My only complaint, and it's not even really the movie's fault, I went to see it in theaters, and it was a massive theater. I mean, there was a lot of people there, and the moments that you were supposed to laugh, I mean, people were falling out of their chairs the whole day. I was like, to me, I like laughing along with the movie, but if I was to watch it a second time at home, with the way the pacing of those like comedic timing, like that would have been the only thing I was just like a little distracted by. That's really not the movie's fault. That's just like the crowd energy, and it's fine. Everybody was very excited for it. So that's my only really complaint, that if I watch it a second time, I'm sure I'd enjoy a lot more of the way that they structured the timing of that stuff a lot more. So
yeah, we watched it on Prime, so it was like Emma and I just watched it like in our basement, so it was like that was kind of nice where we didn't have that. So yeah, that is my film review. Hooray, hurrah, go see Barbie. It's great. Morgan, where in the world are you exactly?
I had to look up the name of my segment.
I was gonna say, I'm really glad you remember the name of your segment from previous appearances.
No, I was so I am here in close to the hometown of Michael Redd in Columbus, Ohio. And I've made it my mission to go to every single national park in a 4-hour radius, because I think there's no chance in hell that I'll actually end up in this part of the country. So, where in the world is Morgan Ross? Morgan Ross was at Mammoth Cave National Park in September. So, like Barbie, it also receives a stellar review. Guess how many miles of cave it has?
See, this is one of those. I mean, you could like feel like you could really underestimate. I'm gonna guess 14.
It's north of 400.
Okay, that's not so really. Yeah,
that would be the south of the north or south. Yeah, it is freaking mammoth. It's almost like they called it that. It is absolutely massive, and they're just underground rivers, and it means that not only like it's long, but it's it's like 100-foot tall, 100-foot wide. You're just like you're going on a walk, and you just happen to be fully underground, and it's not as because it's just the geology of it, the fact that it is so long and has so many layers. It's because it doesn't have kind of like the cool, pretty rock bits as some other caves, but the fact that you can go on like a 3-hour hike underground is crazy. So would check it out.
It's all naturally occurring as well, I assume.
Yeah.
Wow,
It's like crazy. It's a hill, and there's a hill, there's a river, and then the river kind of seeps through the hill, which is where the underground rivers come through, and then it just over time it keeps going lower and lower, and I think it's like sandstone or limestone on top means that it doesn't cave in like a lot of caves do. So it'll be here for a minute. To go full circle,
parks are in Ohio.
This is in Kentucky, right? Looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
We only have Ohio only has Cuyahoga Valley, which is only a national park because politicians, and that's the river that was on fire in the 60s. So everyone loves a good feel-good story. now it has fish again. But yeah, Indiana Dunes has not been checked off. That is also 4 hours ish, and then New River Gorge is in West Virginia, and I think that's my radius. And the West Virginia was the previous segment of where in the world. So I'll let you know when I get to the dunes. To go full circle, also briefly, it is right on the time zone difference. There is part of Kentucky that is in Central Time Zone for some freaking reason, which means that like on the tickets they put bold, caps, italicized, this is in the Central Time Zone. So watch out if you're coming from the east. You don't want to miss your tour.
We have these politicians trying to bank these easy points with daylight savings time. Let's fix just those time zones in the country. Let's start at home and let's build our way back up. We have we got to shut this thing down and figure out what is going on.
We've got
the state
veterans sleeping in the streets. We've got different time zones across the country. Like, what are we as a nation?
And it's not even just like we have different time zones. We just have places that just like we're not doing this, and everyone's like, all right, cool, fine, whatever. It's like, why? Like we could do so much. Like we are trillions of dollars in debt, and we're gonna decide let's just put money towards a war, but let's not fix the key component of what time zone are we in.
Unbelievable. Are people, so back to the cave real quick before I let you get off that. Are people able to camp in the cave? Like, can you stay overnight in the cave or no? Because I've been in caves where you would literally sleep overnight inside the cave or whatever.
One up me. Why don't you? That's
right. Yeah. It was literally a mini cave, but
no, I don't. I mean, presumably you could if they didn't find you, but
okay.
I don't think there's like a self-guided tour bit, and then mostly it's guided tours.
Okay.
And like I think there's probably like some more like hardcore spelunking sort of things, but yeah, sleeping. There's a big like camper van camping culture like in the forest kind of above the cave, and I get the sense that a lot of people just go and chill in the forest and then do like a cave tour per day sort of thing.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I'm where was your Cave. I'm interested now.
God, I can't. It's in Wisconsin. I'd have to remember. I can't remember what the hell the name of it is. It was through scouts, and they just they would. I mean, so many stupid kids. It's amazing. As far as I'm aware, nobody suffered serious injury. And I mean, they would let you climb in through like the network, and you would be like on your belly. The roof is like right, and you're just dragging your way through. I'm like, everything about it was a huge mistake, but it was it was really fun. So
Cave of the Mounds. I know that's like outside of maybe too mainstream. We'll be in touch.
We will be in touch. Yeah.
I don't do caves, so yeah, have fun with that. But we're gonna get to the predictions for the week. 4 games this week. So Monday or today, whenever you're listening to this, they are home against the Bulls. Then they go back to Toronto on Wednesday, and then Friday they go to Charlotte to play the Hornets and come back on another back-to-back. So on Saturday, come back home and play the Dallas Mavericks. What are we thinking for predictions this week, Morgan? What do you think?
I mean, if we lose to the Bulls, Griffin's out, right?
Yes.
We're 500. We've lost to the Bulls. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I'd like to think that we can beat the Bulls at home when we have a day of rest and they don't. I'd like to think that that's possible. Raptors went real well last time, so maybe we can conjure up that. Yeah, I mean, I after that can't pick that for us. And then Mavs on the Sega Baba looks tricky. So I'll go 2-2. We'll lose the mid. No. Win loss. There we go.
Okay. Riley,
it's gonna be sticking with our just barely above 500. We're like yeah. I mean, obviously, if we lose to the Bulls, I'm going to become immediate Griffin out. It's unacceptable at that point. I think we'll beat the Bulls. I think the team is definitely going to get up for another in-season tournament game against the Hornets.
Oh,
and the Hornets are one
tournament.
It's an in-season tournament, so we got to factor that in. The Hornets are one of the 4 teams that have a worse defense than us, so I have faith, and they're picking up injuries too. I think Morgan's spot on. We'll go win-loss. I think we're going to get hammered by the Raptors and the Mavericks. That's going to be horrific. So yeah, I think it's win-loss sounds right to me.
You two are more optimistic than me. I'm saying 1-3.
Ooh,
they'll beat the Bulls and
okay. Okay, good.
Beat the Bulls, get boat raced again by the Raptors. The Hornets, I feel like it's gonna be a dumb game, and then I am terrified of what Luka Doncic is gonna do to this defense. Like Luka is going to absolutely. The only positive is they're going against Jason Kidd. And if there's anyone that's going to have even more of shambolicness, it's Jason Kidd and Kyrie Irving having a disaster class, but Luka's probably going to make up for it. So,
but then we would be sub 500 though. We can't have that.
Nope, I'm saying 1-3.
Wouldn't it be kind of poetic, sort of fitting if we do really poorly this week and Jason Kidd is the one that puts the final nail in the coffin? It'd be. We might have to just cancel the podcast completely if that's how it goes.
Yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic. Like I said, I think the Bulls game will be fine because I feel like Zach LaVine is going to take all the shots and miss it, and it's going to be hilarious. But those other games, I'm just not feeling great about. I would have had more faith in the Dallas game if it wasn't right on a back-to-back, but I don't know that tournament game they might get up for it. But yeah. No, that is all we got for Dear Diaries this week. Make sure to follow us check out all the stuff that we have on brewhoop.com. We have the Monday morning media roundup. We have the tracker Tuesday, Wednesday weekly roundup. We have our grades. We have question and antlers. There's going to be a special guest coming, so make sure to check that out. So make sure to follow all the stuff on Brewhoop. You can follow the social medias as well on brewhoop.com, and we will make sure to talk to you all later. And make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thanks.